IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling. It's Friday. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. This will be the only time I probably ever say this, but be like DK. Hit the like button.
Wow. Just coming out of the gate hot.
I know.
Woo!
Felt like it had to happen today. I'll tell you what, I was sitting here waiting for you to pop in, and I saw Christopher Galloway say this. He said, well, here we go again. And so I went to Twitter and well, don't tell me there's it's
something.
Been one of those, yeah. Don't tell me there's more transfer portal news. Unfortunately, fortunately, rather.
Kind of. There's a little bit of we'll get into it, but there's a little bit of transfer portal news.
Technically, I guess you could say, yeah. Non-transfer portal news.
We'll get to it, obviously, but I've got plenty to say on that front. So
I don't want to go too deep into this because we've beat up this whole transfer portal topic with Notre Dame women's basketball this week, but we had people are obviously disgruntled, they're upset. I still think that it has just as much to do with the way the season ended as what has followed it. It has just turned everything very sour. Mm-hmm. But Notre Dame obviously has 4 players in the transfer portal. So I did some digging, did some research.
Ooh, look at you.
And looked. I found over a dozen teams that have more than 6 players in the transfer portal. It's like pushing 15 to 20. Because there were a couple, like Georgia Tech, I know has that many. I didn't even count them because Nell Fortner, their head coach, is retiring. So you can kind of, understand why some players would hit the portal and that kind of stuff. Penn State has 9. They are retaining their head coach, even though she had some, there was some bullying type stuff. I think that was kind of, or body shaming. Jeez. It was, allegations that came out earlier this year. Penn State has 9. Auburn has 10. Arizona State has 8. Purdue is one of several schools that has 7 players in the portal. And even USC, who just went to the Elite 8, 4 players in the transfer portal right now. So it's it's everywhere, man. Over 1,200 players are in the portal. It is everywhere.
The portal is crazy to me.
Nuts.
The grass is not always greener. That's just my biggest takeaway. You know what I mean? And I get it. If you are a high level person going into the portal and you know where you're going to go and you got the no contact and all that stuff. Okay, cool. I get it, right? Okay, fine. You're going to chase the dollars. You're going to chase something. You want a better opportunity. Okay, fine. But a lot of people go into the portal, man, and they never come out. It's
true.
It's a black hole for a lot of people, they go in and they do not get the opportunity that they think that they're going to get. And that makes me sad. So I just think there's a lot of falsities out there about what the portal is and all of those things. And it's worse for football, obviously, because the rosters are bigger and there's more players. But basketball is the same. The promise of better is not always the reality. And
true story.
Yeah,
true story. Good. Did you see the Kylie Watson tweet from yesterday by any chance?
Did not.
So she tweeted, I love Notre Dame, I love Coach Ivey, and I love this entire program. This decision was not about leaving something, but instead embracing something new for my final year of college basketball. I'll be graduating with a Notre Dame degree this spring, leave here with relationships that go way deeper than this sport. This program is part of the reason I am who I am today, and I am truly indebted to everyone who is a part of it at this school, and to this school. So that's from Kylie Watson.
So try not to burn that bridge. I dig it.
Or that's at good. The very least is actually genuine about how she feels.
Well, and I guess that's what I meant.
Because a lot of people are upset. Right. She posted that. It's been crickets from Olivia Miles, with the exception of apparently a couple, comments and strays that she has since deleted, I guess.
Okay.
So
yeah, I didn't mean that in a negative way. I just meant it as she's speaking out to kind of hush the critics, to be perfectly honest with you, about the reasoning behind it and all of that. And also that the women's basketball program isn't imploding, so.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, we, as you said, we've got some Notre Dame men's basketball news that we'll talk about in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's start with some Notre Dame football because we've got a lot. We got a media opportunity today. We got to talk with both Mike Mickens and Marty Biagi and some other players like James Rendell and some defensive backs and that kind of thing. Tomorrow, we're going to get to watch some practice over there at Notre Dame, and we'll talk to Marcus Freeman afterwards. What exactly that entails, we will find out tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not holding my breath, but I haven't seen anything.
If we see Marty Biagi at his finest, like running special teams drills, we might just the whole media gaggle might just get up and walk. I don't know.
Except for me, I like watching special teams. Okay,
of course you do. Well, it's good that I've got plenty of Marty Biagi and
I know I was
James
excited.
Rendell
I have been waiting for this day just because of Marty Biagi and any kind of specialist stuff we can talk about. I'm in. I'm ready.
Yes. Let's start before we get to Vince's special team specialty. We talked to Mike Mickens today, and I asked him about Christian Gray and kind of where he is this spring after the season that he just finished in 2024.
He's in the details of everything now. So, how's his footwork is, what's the recognition is, how can he play faster each play by recognizing splits and formations and just technique and how to finish on the ball. That's where he's at in his game. He understands what to do in the call. Now it's how can I perfect my game.
So more consistency, I guess, basically.
Yeah, every corner. I mean, every DB, that's what you want, right? Consistency. If you're occasionally great corner, then you're a exposed corner. So we preach consistency. Be consistently good, not occasionally great. So that's not just a him thing. That's a every corner thing.
Consistently good, not occasionally great. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to put it. Where do you fall in the camp of Christian Gray? Are you more confident in Christian Gray? You more concerned about Christian Gray after watching him play last season?
Oh, I'm not worried about Christian Gray. Look, he played at an elite level, obviously at times, and then he had some struggles at times, and he just needs to clean that up. If he cleans that up, they're going to be, they will again be in the conversation of the best cornerback duo in the country. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. And I think Christian Gray is an elite player. And you got to have a short memory. You know what I mean? And
yep.
if Mike Mickens, who I do believe is the best secondary coach in the country, believes in Christian Gray, I'm good. That's all I need. If you're still good with him, I'm still good with him. Let's go. Absolutely.
And, I think, look, the guy still had 3 interceptions last year, had the highlight play, obviously, against USC, a huge
massive
momentum-turning game, had arguably the biggest interception of the season in the Orange Bowl against Penn State to set up the game-winning field goal. I mean, you talk about 2 massive only 3 interceptions. Those are 2 pretty good ones to have, I think.
Season-changing, right? I mean, are season-affecting. I'm not saying they would have lost to USC, but that put the nail in the coffin. You know what I mean? And obviously, the pick in the playoffs was just absolutely I think people are already writing Notre Dame's obituary at that point, and then all of a sudden it's like Christian Gray for the win. You know what I mean? So those were massive, massive moments. And you know what? A lesser mental, corner doesn't make those plays because he's in his feels about some other stuff that happened either in that game or earlier in the season. So. I'm glad he's playing for Notre Dame. Let's just put it that way.
No, I mean, that's right, because you can't turn around and make those kind of plays. We all know, we saw the USC game. We saw things that happened to him in the USC game before that play. But to be able to keep your mental composure and to still be able to turn around and make a play like that, like you said, you can't look back. You got to have a short memory. You got to keep looking forward. And to me, the positives far outweighed the negatives. Yeah, there were some negatives, but the positives far outweighed them. And this is still a relatively young guy. There's still just a ton of upside for him. And let's be honest. Just like when Benjamin Morrison was playing out there, now it's Leonard Moore on one side, Christian Gray on the other. You got to throw somewhere.
Right.
Someone's got to throw someplace. So, you're going to throw where you think you have the best chance. And for him, that just means potentially more opportunities to make plays. And I think that as a cornerback, that's probably the way that you've got to look at it.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. And I think, he was a sophomore. I mean, he's a true sophomore. You know what I mean? Like, he's got a lot of football ahead of him, and at least a year at Notre Dame. And so you want him to be as successful as he can be. And as long as he keeps, getting better and better, sky's the limit. I mean, again, arguably the best cornerback duo in the country.
Very well could be. Very well could be. Yeah, I'm much more excited, much more on the confident side.
Yeah,
with him. So looking forward to seeing him out there again. This season. Now, as promised, it's the punter that was promised. James Rendell, the Australian punter, back for another season at Notre Dame. The coaching staff has referred to Rendell as a 5-tool punter because of everything he can do. And here's what Rendell had to say about that today.
I guess, obviously being Australian, the rollout rugby punt is something that we do a lot. Whether that's rolling out right or rolling out left, and then obviously just a traditional pocket spiraling punt as well. So I think, it's really good to have all those different tools in the arsenal. And I trust the coaches to come up with a game plan that, is best going to hold us in good stead to beat the opposition, whoever it is in that week. So, I certainly feel like I'm in a position now where I can, really showcase my whole arsenal and, really feel comfortable executing the game plan, whatever that may be on any given week.
I'm trying to remember, have we actually had any James, have we had stuff from James Rendell before?
Nope.
The first Australian accent that we've had on this show.
Correct. Yes, no doubt about it. I don't know that I've ever actually heard him speak, to be perfectly honest with you. So there's that. I could listen to him for hours just because of the Australian accent, but yeah.
I guess, obviously being Australian, the rollout rugby punt is something that we do a lot.
Being Australian.
I want to know what all 5 tools are.
I do too. And I wish we could have asked that.
Yeah. I feel like that's a straight steal from baseball. No pun intended.
And that's actually, I think O'Malley asked the question, and he kind of had to explain, to James Rendell that's kind of a baseball term, when you say 5-tool player.
That is, yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
or the lingo surrounding. I mean, he knows what baseball is, I'm sure. But
my question for you: over under 1.5 of those tools that you actually need to see from James Rendell in games next season.
I mean, I need to see over, but I don't know what all the tools are. So in my head, I'm thinking, punt for distance, that would be one. So you hit for power. So that would be the first tool. Accuracy would be another one. Can you, pin him in the coffin corner? Can you kick away from a returner? Those kinds of things. That would be 2.
By the way, O'Malley came with this, and I was impressed because he did some research. I'm going to fully credit him because, again, he's the one who threw this out there. He has researched, as far back as he could find, Notre Dame punters. Rendell, last year, no touchbacks. Only punter O'Malley could, only Notre Dame punter O'Malley could find.
Interesting.
No touchbacks in an entire season, especially considering the season went 16 games.
That's a great point. That's actually pretty impressive because it is very impressive because you're trying to obviously pin somebody deep and things like that. But he didn't do that very often. He didn't really get near the end zone. And I don't know if that's a good thing.
That's true. Because again,
you know what I mean?
I think we all go back to that, the one practice, day 1 of training camp where we got to see him just boom balls in the air. He was pinning everything, not only was he booming them, but he was dropping them down around the 10-yard line.
Like sand wedge,
consistently.
Just checking up.
And that's kind of what, is a little tongue in cheek with this question, obviously. And you were rattling off, the whatever you call that, what was he calling it? Where you go left or right, the Australian
rollout,
the rollout thing,
rugby punt,
the rugby punt. Thank you. I don't think any of us need to see that.
Nope.
Right? That's when he was least effective when
Correct.
they had him doing that stuff.
Correct. And he's like, that's what I'm used to and all that. No, you're not good at it. I'm so happy that you're used to it, but you're not good at
guy.
it.
take left and right
Right.
rugby out and just use that leg.
I need you right behind the center, maybe off center just a little bit, and that's kick the ball. Like that's it. The reason for the rugby punt is you're allowing your gunners to get down there and things like that. He's got a big enough leg where if he just gets it in the air, that's going to give his guys plenty of time to get down there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not the rugby style punt is not as effective for him as it is for some other guys who don't have the big leg that he does.
Yeah.
So come on, man. Come on.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
I'm getting called out. I should know what the 5 tools are. I have because
again, no one says this in punting.
I've never heard that term used ever.
A punter.
And my son is a scholarship player at a college, and I've never heard the term 5-tool as a punter ever, ever.
Again, 5-tool baseball player,
right?
That we've heard of.
Because, again, what? Maybe that's a thing. Maybe it is, and I'll ask my kid. But I want to know what the 5 tools are. I mean, and that's a legitimate question. I
don't know that it was a literal. There are literally 5 tools, but just like this guy has a lot of different moves he can go to in his arsenal.
Because you got rollout, you got regular, you got hit for power, you got accuracy. So that's 4. That's what I would say. I can't really think of another. Hands. Maybe you got to have good hands. Maybe that's the 5th tool. Good hands.
Probably so. That's important. Like the first step, before you can do any of that other stuff, you got to catch it.
See, John's right there, catching one of the tools. Can he throw? Well, that would be tool number 6.
Mike. It's funny because he said he roomed with Riley Leonard last year, which I didn't realize.
Interesting.
It's kind of an interesting combination. James Rendell from Australia and Riley Leonard from Alabama, quarterback punter.
Wow.
Together. But not so much with the throwing of the football, it doesn't sound like. That's kind of something that he's, still getting used to. That's a little bit of an art.
If I'm going to be negative Nancy, he probably didn't want to learn from Riley Leonard anyway.
Yeah.
On how to throw a football.
DK says he knows of a 2-tool podcast. Well, why don't you go listen to it? Because it's not this one. I mean, I can give you some recommendations for a couple 2-tool podcasts, but I'm holding back right now. I almost let one slip.
Do DK and Salty have a podcast together?
That's even better. That's
just
even
kidding,
better.
Fellas. Just kidding, fellas.
We could, if they did, we could chime in and
that would be great.
Kind of heckle them
during the whole
thing. So
I'm in.
So Rendell discussed the biggest adjustment that he had to make to punting in college last year after never doing it.
Punting, period.
Yeah, exactly.
The biggest challenge for me, particularly early on, was just adapting to the game day requirements. Because obviously, the game goes for around 4 hours, but you're warming up 2 hours before the game, and you might be sitting on the bench for an hour or two until you go out and you have 1 rep.
Ideally,
and you got to make it count. Those games where I didn't punt until halfway through the last quarter. So the biggest challenge for me was just trying to stay physically and mentally, at an optimal level, and that's one of those things that you can only gain with experience. I think as the season went on, I was able to get a lot better with that, and I was more comfortable with my process. And obviously that was reflected through, the more yards on my punts and, being able to perform better for my team as well. So,
Vince, that answer is blank.
Legit. I think that's a legit answer. I do, because being a specialist, it's a mental grind, right? Like even in practice, you're just kind of off doing your own thing. And then all of a sudden the coach is like, all right, I need you to kick. I need you to punt, and you're out there for 5 minutes and then you're back to doing stuff by yourself. It's very similar to what happens in an actual game. You know what I mean? And so you do have to stay mentally and physically locked into a game. Otherwise you're not going to perform well. And I'm sure that is like, he was just doing practices. Like that's all he was doing. So it's completely different. I get it.
It's one thing to take a basketball out and go out on an empty court and shoot jumpers or even free throws. Right. It's another thing to actually be on a team or, like hit 3-pointers in a
Right.
clutch spot in a real game, hit free throws in a clutch spot in a real game. Or like, I remember when Jesse was like still in Little League when he was young, and he was like, it's like, man, I go to batting practice and I can just hit the ball all over the place. And then I get in the game and it's, it's harder. And it's like, they're trying to get you out in a
Correct.
game. There's a natural difference.
Yes.
And obviously you figure that out as you get older, but
Of course.
he was still pretty young, but yeah. And, so James Rendell is over there basically in a warehouse in Australia or outside or where, on some, in the outback, learning how to punt down there,
dodging kangaroos and koalas,
So it's like punt after punt after punt. It's one
Right.
thing to do that, to learn the actual skill, but having never actually played the game that you're learning this to do, I mean, that's got to be a huge adjustment, like he's talking about. And I hadn't ever really thought about it that way, the fact that now, because again, it's not even just getting in and doing your job, but it's also the waiting, in between those opportunities.
And having to stay absolutely locked in.
Yeah.
And then, you get ready on every third down, and then you're not actually going in. And then you get ready, and then you're not actually going. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then all of a sudden you got to, so it is a very unique position from a mental standpoint and being locked in. And like I said, both physically and mentally. And, you got the little net on the side that you can go kick to, you can punt into or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, you still can't see how the ball's coming off your foot. And, it's still not the same as the real life deal, So, yeah, it's
exactly.
It's a challenge. There's no doubt about it. So I actually respect him for voicing that and how that was a challenge for him to kind of overcome and get better. And he's right. He did get better as the season went on. He also didn't roll out as much with the rugby punting. So there's that too.
Well, and that, and that's part of it as well. Like all that stuff that you just talked about, and then throw in the fact that they've got these different calls that they decide they want you to do. Sometimes it's going to be a rugby punt. It's going to go this way, or it's going to go this way. It's like all these.
I felt like they were overthinking it, man.
I do too, especially for a guy
who
was so new to it. He was basically a novice.
Yes. Just let him do it. Just let him go out
into that environment. Let him do what he does best.
Yes.
It definitely felt like they did more of that as the season.
I agree. And it can be, left, right, center.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he needed to do. You know what I mean? That's it. None of this rolling out and all this stuff. Again, he's got a big enough leg. He'll get it in the air and allow his guys to go down and cover. In my opinion, rugby punting is for guys that don't have the big leg. It's for guys that can't get it up in the air that long and allows the guys to get down there. That's not who he is. Just let him kick the ball, man. Just let him do it.
Yeah. Johnny S. made this comment. He said something about the sheer scope of the stadium and the crowds. That kind of leads us into Marty Biagi's comments about Rendell as well, because we talked to Marty Biagi, and he talked about the extra experience that he got last year, with those extra games in the college football playoff on top of, what he did just during the regular season.
I thought it was huge, and because it was a playoff game, atmosphere, you can kind of say you've done it all, in year one. So now going to play, last year at Texas A&M, he didn't know football, had never played, and he's playing in front of the largest, crowd in the country right off the bat. Now you go to the national championship or playoff run. He's been in these environments, so we can now say, hey, this is the expectation. You've already played in the most elite atmospheres. It's time to go.
So how beneficial do you think that's ultimately going to be for Rendell now?
I think it's beneficial to everybody on the team. They're never going to play in a bigger atmosphere than the national championship game, right? Or the playoff games. And, they're never going to be in a bigger atmosphere at Notre Dame Stadium than they were when they were playing against IU. You know what I mean? And so that's hugely beneficial to everybody. Of course, it's beneficial to him as well, because the fact that he's never kicked in a game before he was at Notre Dame is just mind-blowing, right? Like, he's never kicked in a high school stadium where the wind is what the wind. You know what I mean? He's only
Mhm.
kicked in these massive stadiums where it swirls or where, you know, it's one way down at the field level, but it's another way when you get it up in the air.
Right.
Like, you don't deal with that.
Which
in
is Notre
smaller
Dame
stadiums.
Stadium pretty consistently.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that part of it would even be a bigger transition to being a high-level college punter than even just the atmosphere. But obviously, all of it is a learning process because he's never done it in a game, which, like I said,
Right.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, like to think, as Biagi was saying, you go down into that, like think about just the way everyone was talking about the atmosphere and the night game at Texas A&M right off the bat, and like at least most of these other guys, everybody but the freshmen, have at least been in some kind of environment like that, a stadium, a sold out stadium. For Rendell, he'd never experienced anything like that, and then the season goes on, and then kind of how I posed that question to him was, beyond, all that environment and stuff like that, he gets 12 games, but then he gets 4 more games at the end of the season. So he's got an extra third of a season that he, like for both for practice and for experience, plus those environments that he's kicking in, so like he's already got a head start now heading into next year just because of the extra actual, week in, week out for what, basically 6 weeks, by the time the season ended and up to the national championship game. He got a lot of extra reps in practice, and he got to experience, a lot of those big environments. And so, like, how can you be phased after you've been through all of that?
Right. And he's like, 25, or 24, or however old he is. Like, he's an adult, and now he has all these experiences under his belt, and he's only going to thrive, I would think, as long as they don't overthink it. That's the biggest thing, because you can still screw a guy up by overthinking the scheme.
Yeah.
So let the man kick the football.
Well, and they did ask him and Biagi about, because he's got this year guaranteed. Sounds like they're still working on a third year. Okay. So like that is still up in the air right now, but they asked both of them, about it. And as of right now, they have no answer on beyond 2025, but he's got this year, possibly a third. We'll kind of have to continue to wait and see how that all works out. So Dylan's going to have to wait at least an extra year before.
It's perfect. He can grad transfer in like 3 years. Right. So it'll be.
Maybe Dylan just needs to go to Pro Kick Australia and live down under for a year,
right?
Because like those guys all come back with big college jobs, so
work
maybe
on
like
his
that
accent, all of those different things. It doesn't hurt that James Rendell is also 6'3" or whatever he is. Like
it doesn't, and he was gunned up today, man.
I bet.
Like that picture that I used for the cover picture for the soundbite, like that was like he almost looked like a dude modeling to be a football player.
Like the ones that you see in like the magazine who are like modeling the uniform. You're like, yeah, that guy doesn't play football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he just looks good in the uniform.
Yeah.
But
he definitely looked more like a rugby player today when we saw him, just from the size that he's got and the, the fit, with the jersey on the guns and all that. He was bringing gun show out there.
Having the power that he does when he kicks the football, it does not hurt that he's 6'3", 220 or whatever he is. You know what I mean? Like I think he's got 4 to 5 inches on my kid and like 50 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, definitely doesn't hurt when you got a little more oomph behind the football to get after it. But look, I think second year, the sky's the limit for him as well.
Me too.
Because of all the experience that he had and the adjustment period. Again, not only was it that he was kicking in his first games, he's living in a new country. Like there's like so many things that he's doing and experiencing for the first time, and his team went to the national championship. So, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Is it Michael or Michael? I have no idea what his degree is.
Yeah. They don't share that kind of stuff with us usually unless we ask.
Yeah. Could not say. Vince, there was a recent thread about controversial sports takes on our Irish Breakdowns Champions Lounge, and I saw a few that stood out.
Okay.
That some people submitted, some of our subscribers, including this one. So here's the controversial take. Brady Quinn is extremely overrated by Notre Dame fans. In fact, Ian Book won a lot more big games than Brady Quinn ever did. But for some reason, Brady is loved and people don't like Ian. What do you think about that take? You buying it? You selling it?
Oh,
Where
that's
are
a
you on that?
huge sell.
Massive sell for me as well.
It's a huge sell. But first of all, Brady Quinn was massively more talented than Ian Book, and that's just a straight football.
Just look at where they were drafted for starters.
Right. I mean, just massively more talented. Okay, he had more arm strength. He had more accuracy. All of those things, right? Yes.
Neither one of them played defense, by the way.
Also very true.
When you talk about who won more games.
Yes.
Neither one of them played defense.
By the way, that's the difference. You took the words right out of my mouth and you nailed it. No, you're good. Look, Charlie Weiss did a great job of recruiting offensive players.
Yep.
Great job. It's not great at defensive players, right? And he wasn't really great at getting defensive coordinators and those kinds of things. And so his offenses could put up points, but they couldn't stop anybody. That was the problem, right? And so, yes, Brady Quinn is more revered because he's a better quarterback. Now, is he more revered by the ladies because he's better looking? Sure. We can all talk about that. So is Sam Hartman, right? I mean, but if we're just talking about football, Brady Quinn's a better player. I'm sorry. It's the longevity award is why
he was drafted in the first round.
Right. Yeah.
And remember, everyone was talking about how far he slipped in the first round.
Correct.
First round draft pick.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Huge difference.
And not only that, like when you're just looking at pure wins and losses, Brady Quinn was a starter for, I guess they were both starters for roughly the same amount of time. I was going to say like 2.5 years. Quinn became a starter, I believe, in 2004 before Charlie Weiss actually got here. So he had some experience. But think about the schedules that Notre Dame was playing 20 years ago when Brady Quinn was playing compared to what Ian Book. There was no ACC agreement. Notre Dame was playing Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue. And this is when Purdue was still good under Joe Tiller. You know, it's not today's Purdue. And obviously USC was still on there. Boston College was a pretty regular, opponent showing up. The schedules were just like, if you compared schedules, you would say that, those were tougher schedules in 2005 and 2006 that Brady Quinn was playing compared to what Ian Book was playing. And then you throw in the defense and you throw in the fact that, like you said, Quinn is just a better player. Like, well, he just was.
The stats aren't even comparable. You know what I mean? Like, Ian Book had a better passing percentage. That is about the only stat that's better, right?
Yeah, I think you go touchdown passes and yards, and Quinn eclipses him, right?
Yes, touchdowns is 95 for Quinn, and 72 for Book, and then yards is 8,900 basically for Ian Book, and 11,700 for Brady Quinn.
Yeah.
Now Brady Quinn had twice as many interceptions, is 20 to 39. But again, he had like 25 more touchdowns as well. So yeah, again, better player.
Because he had a bigger arm, because he was willing to stretch the field. And
Correct.
Sometimes interceptions, and I think most of those interceptions, again, probably happened in that 2004 season as opposed to 2005. And I'm not saying he didn't have any in 2005 and 2006, but I think more of them happened in 2004 when he was.
To your point, he had 25 total interceptions his first 2 years. He had 14 in his second 2.
There you go.
So,
all right.
To your point, sir.
Okay, so a couple other controversial takes from that thread. I thought this was interesting. They should lower the rim in women's basketball. Do you buy or sell lowering the rim for women's basketball?
I do not.
Let's stick to college women's basketball.
Yeah. I no, I don't like. How low are we talking? Like 9.5 feet? Are we giving them 6 inches? Are we giving them a foot? Lowering the rim just makes me think of like being in the driveway and doing a dunk contest where you lower the rim, and because none of us could actually dunk, but if we put it at 9 feet, man, we were jamming.
Would it make the women's game more exciting if they were able to dunk?
No,
with at least some
because
frequency.
it would not, because, and I'm trying to figure out a great way to say this. Women aren't going to be sailing through the air and doing like these windmill dunks and things like that. That's just not how they're built. It's just never going to happen. It doesn't matter how big or tall. Like Sedona Prince, for example, she's 6'7". She's a lumbering 6'7". She's not going to be throwing down like backwards jams,
Right.
even if it's a 9-foot rim. You know what I mean? Like the women's game is not played above the rim, and it doesn't matter how low you make it. It will never be played above the rim. That's just not the women's game.
I mean, it could be if you made it like an 8-foot rim, but
then it would just be like, just because they're taller and they could just do this, they're not going to be like jumping.
You're saying
off
they're still not going to be leaping. I mean, there are a few
Right.
players who can do that, obviously, but
Yeah.
I just envisioned when I saw this, like if you did it in women's college basketball, like social media would be filled with, because then you'd have a different height for a men's game and a women's game. And at some point, some school is going to roll out the wrong height, like they're going to, like one side would be, whatever the women's height ends up being, and the other side of the gym is going to be the men's, and it's going to take them like 10 minutes to figure it out that they're the wrong heights. It's like that kind of stuff would be going on all the time. I could guarantee you that would happen if all of a sudden you start, changing the heights
That's really funny.
of the rims in
That's
college
really funny.
basketball.
So. I just the women's game is the women's game. Like it's great for what it is, and I have no problem like watching it and getting excited based on what I'm watching. I don't have the expectation that somebody's going to come flying down the lane and dunking, and I don't think that would make it better. I don't know. No, they already play with a smaller ball, which I totally understand because the hands are smaller. Let's not affect the rim height. What say you on that? Like, are you?
No, I'm definitely no. I'm no.
Okay.
I'm selling on this. Yeah,
good.
I don't think we need to go to that extent. Michael, or again, Michael, obviously not a women's basketball fan, so we'll give you a free pass since we haven't seen your handle in here very often. Everyone's got their own tastes, and that's fine. So the other controversial take, the NFL should adopt the college football overtime. You buy or sell that?
We kind of talked about this the other day, and I buy it. I think that would be more entertaining, to be honest. If you, it's very clear that the NFL wants to make sure that the offense touches the football the same amount of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it's very clear. So why don't you just do this? Like, make it simple. Like, and again, I would move it back. I wouldn't start them at the 25. That's the only change. I would move them back a little bit more, but that's it.
What do you think? Do you like, what is this? I think year 4 of like the 3-point or the 2-point.
Oh, I hate that.
Would you go? I think it's the dumbest.
I hate
decision. Like, how does that make the game? How does that?
Yeah.
How does that speed the game up as opposed to just doing the old system where you just continue to start at the 25-yard line, you go for 2, once you get past so many overtimes. I don't get the whole 2-point conversion thing. I think that's the, like, college football has done a lot of dumb rules tweaks over the years. I think that's the dumbest thing that they've ever done.
Here's what I would do if I was the college, right? If I'm going to adjust the college game, because the NFL game, I think they should adopt it, but move the ball back. Okay. So the college game is right now, they start the ball in 25 and they get every opportunity to score, right? Until they turn it over or kick it or whatever. Once they go through maybe 2 to 3 times of doing that, right? Okay. I have no problem with them being forced to go for 2. Okay, cool. Then instead of doing the 2-point play, which is dumb, then I would go to the high school rules. You're getting the ball at the 10-yard line. You got 4 downs. You got 4 downs from the 10. Yeah. That's it. And then you keep doing that until you get a winner. That's what I would do. So it wouldn't be as far back. We've gone through 3 overtimes. Okay, fine. Now we're going from the 10-yard line. You got 4 downs to get in, and that's it. And you go until you get a winner. That's what I would do. Going from the 3-yard line is stupid. I don't like it. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, John, not in on the college overtime either. I don't like the current college overtime. If it was the old college overtime system where it's just, you alternate from the 25-yard line, that's fine. Like NFL, like we talked about, just start them back farther. Either have them start at midfield or start around the 40-yard line, and you just keep alternating possessions like that. Because, look at the kickoff rule that they changed last year and they're going to stick with. Like with that kickoff rule, like you're better off just doing something closer to what college overtimes look like. Again, subtracting the 2-point conversion thing that college has. We're both way out on that.
Yeah,
I can't believe that it stuck around and
I agree.
They haven't voted to try to change it.
I agree completely because even coaches hate it.
I know.
Because they're giving up their 2-point plays. Like, you know what I mean? You only got so many in the hopper, and then you're just calling plays like randomly at this point,
True.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Markus Burton will return to Notre Dame for his junior season.
Great for Notre Dame. Questionable decision by Markus Burton. That's what I would say, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Now, I'm always a proponent of getting your degree and all of those things. I'm always a proponent of that. And so I'm sure that played into the reasoning behind him staying. And that's great. Marcus,
you would think so.
Kid.
You've only probably got,
Makes
if he's in line, he's only got one more year to finish his degree.
True.
So why wouldn't you stick around?
Right. Yep. I totally get that. If your desire as a college basketball player is to go to the Final Four, he made a bad decision. That's right. Or to make the tournament. Like, I think he made a bad decision. I know Notre Dame is pouring resources into the men's basketball program, and so he obviously was the beneficiary of that, and deservedly so. He's the best player on the team,
right?
He absolutely deserves.
If you're giving NIL money to somebody, he's the guy that you're giving
100%.
it to. Yes,
100%. And I'm glad he's sticking. As a fan, as somebody who knows him from high school, I'm ecstatic that he's sticking around. I love watching him play.
I get what you're saying, but you can also by being Markus Burton, by being the local kid who is, just led the ACC in scoring and who always wanted to play here and has had that opportunity. Right. Now, granted, he's had that, again, like the degree makes sense. Stick around for at least another year and get your degree before you, potentially move on wherever. But, you can also be the local kid who helped kind of start the turnaround.
Yeah.
And that's,
true.
That's obviously what Micah Shrewsbury is hoping for. And to start that turnaround, it's got to start with the players that you've got out there on the floor. And he's been the best player by far that Notre Dame has had in Shrewsbury's first 2 seasons. Yeah. So, to get a guy like that, I mean, it's definitely the best basketball news that's come out of Notre Dame in the last week.
100%.
So
100% agree with that.
Everybody can be happy about that.
Yep, 100% agree with that. And now all eyes are obviously on the portal and what both teams are going to do in the portal because both teams need to get a few viable starters out of the portal, yesterday. But, so we'll see how that looks. But, yeah, I mean, this is huge for Notre Dame basketball. It's absolutely huge. And I'm happy for him that he made this decision. It's obviously he wants to stay in the community, wants to stay near his family. It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm excited to watch him.
I got a couple more basketball questions for you. Jay Billis says men's college basketball should go to quarters like the rest of the college basketball playing world. Buy or sell this one.
Okay. I need to ask you a question. You are much closer to the basketball. So you have lived through the transition of the women's game from halves to quarters.
Yeah.
Obviously, total minutes, it's exactly the same.
Correct.
Right? So can you explain to me, because I don't understand the difference, like what pros and cons? Like, I don't understand the difference.
To me, the pace of a women's game, even though, again, I realize the athleticism is different, for like any anti-women's basketball people. We've actually got a fairly amount of enlightened people, who enjoy the women's game just as well as the men's game. But either way, the pace of the game just goes by so much quicker when it's 2 quarters.
Oh, really?
As opposed to, 1 20-minute half. Because you're splitting it in half. You're essentially always counting down. And that also means that you've got 2 more opportunities each game for clock winding down,
end of quarter
excitement, and those kind of things.
Okay.
And one of the things that Bill has said also is in the women's game, you reset the fouls every quarter, so if you get in a bind with team fouls, you can reset the fouls at the quarter and you just start over in the next quarter. Now, I've heard some people who are opposed to, resetting the team fouls. And, like the thing is, you really don't have to if you don't want to, because I don't think they reset the fouls in the NBA. It's just, that's still continuous. But so to me, there's just, I think it helps create more excitement, and the pace of the game to me just seems so much faster in the women's game compared to the men's game, because of the fact that you've always, you're counting down like that all the time.
That is the first time I've heard that particular argument of you've got more like end of clock scenarios. And I'm all for that. I think that's when real coaching comes out, or that's when you see who the real coaches are, because what did they draw up? What does it look like? Things like that. So in that regard, cool. Yeah, I'm all 4 quarters. That's fine. Like I'm like right down the middle. Like I didn't really fall one way or the other, but I do enjoy excitement in the game, and that would add a little bit more excitement. So yeah, I'd be all for it. I think that's great. It's not doing it would not make me not watch. You know what I mean? But I would be for it if they decided to make that change.
I've just never understood, because the international game has it, the NBA has it, the WNBA, women's college basketball, high school has it. Again, like every other level, but men's has stuck with it. And like from what I've heard, it could have something to do with, because it is such a TV sport.
Yeah.
TV inventory and commercial breaks, basically. What do you do with, I think they might, lose a commercial break or two if you did that.
If you go to quarters. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Feels like with all the other crap that you put up on the screen, you could just put something sponsored up on the screen and
seriously,
call
everything's
it a day.
sponsored these days.
I know,
including like the teams
or superimpose it on the court.
Right. Exactly. Which is ridiculously easy to do. So, yeah. So I'm for. I like your argument. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Like Johnny said, 4 buzzer beaters instead of 2.
Yeah.
And it's you'd be amazed, especially like if you're at or watching a lot of games, like those, just the extra juice that you get, like at the end of the first quarter that you wouldn't otherwise have if it was just, the middle minutes of a 20-minute half, you've got a long shot, to beat the buzzer at the end of the quarter and stuff like that.
I'm all for it.
Helps spice the game up.
By the way, our guy Michael, I'm going to say it's Michael. Correct me if I'm wrong, my man. He says the women's game is very exciting. I should have said it already. Exciting enough. So
okay. He made it sound, whatever comment he made earlier, like he was like all out on women's basketball.
So I appreciate you.
Good clarification. Good clarification.
So I wanted to get that out there.
There you go.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. So we've got the men's and women's Final Fours this weekend. How into these Final Fours are you, Vince?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being completely out and 10 being completely in, I'm probably like a 1. I would love to say that I would watch the Final Four and the national championship just because I'm a fan of the game, but I'm not. I want to watch my team. And as soon as Notre Dame lost, I was out. You know what I mean? And then as far as the men are concerned, as soon as I found out that I wasn't going to come in last in my bracket, I'm out. I'm good, because the bracket that I'm in at school, the loser has to buy everybody lunch. So as long as you're not the loser, you're good. And I'm not the loser. So like at that point, I checked out. Like I'm done. I know that's really sad, but
I'm the same way though. I've been less into this obviously the women's, because of the disappointment of last weekend and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like Texas, South Carolina is the first game tonight. Should be a great game. They played some great games. But again, it's just like, it's like we should be in Tampa right now. Well,
like, and the men's tournament specifically has just been so chalk that it's not even been all that exciting.
That's exactly it. And I've heard, and we kind of touched on it, I think early, after that first weekend of the tournament, I really think because of the portal and NIL, these mid-majors are just, getting
stripped. They're getting decimated.
And you're just not going to see as many upsets because those mid-majors that win are typically teams like with seniors who play together. And I don't think we're going to see that. And so even though by and large, it's typically, like chalk ends up winning out in the end, But what makes the tournament the most fun is those first 4
Yes.
days of the tournament when you do at least have some of those
Right.
Cinderellas to kind of, it just makes it more fun. And I think it's easy to lose interest when you're not seeing some of that kind of stuff.
When your best underdog, upset story is Tom Calipari, like it's a stretch. That's a stretch. You know what I mean? Like that's a stretch. He's not an underdog. You know what I mean? Like even though his team was a 10 seed, he's not an underdog. So like,
good point.
That's a hard one to swallow. Like it was a great story, but at the same time, it's not, James Madison, and it's not Loyola Chicago, and it's not those kinds of stories.
Yeah. When you've got 3 number 1 seeds and a number 2 seed, and it's really, you've got that in both tournaments. You've got all these number 1 seeds and a 2 seed. I think Alabama's the only 2 seed out of the group. Well, hold it. Is Alabama a 1 seed on the men's side?
I think they might be.
For some reason, I was thinking they were a 2, but let me see. Nope. Well, and it's not even Alabama. It's freaking Houston. Duh. No wonder I was thinking Alabama is a 2, but it's Houston. It's not Alabama that's in there. It's Houston and Duke. Jesse's pulling for Houston. I don't even know who I'd pull for. And again, it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
For me.
It's all number 1 seeds.
Yeah.
Like that's like even the NCAA can't be happy.
The
with
2
that.
on the women's side is UConn, and like it's
Right.
not like anybody considers them an underdog.
Right. 100%.
It's okay. So the Y is silent. So apparently it's Mikkel.
Oh, okay.
Is
Mikkel.
I'm guessing.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for that.
Yes. I saw you start this up. So he says, what's our take on the On3 guy saying Angeli's the second coming of Joe Burrow? Buy or sell? You've seen Angeli more than any of us preseason.
Well, I haven't seen him at all this year. But to compare anybody to Joe Burrow and the season that he had in 2019 is a tough pill for me to swallow. And you can put any of the Notre Dame quarterbacks' names in that, and I would say no.
We talked about this the other day, and that was one of the better points that Vince has ever made on this show. And I mean, he's made a lot of good points, but I put it up at the top.
Yes.
It's not just Angeli who we're saying this about. It's any of the 3. To say any of these guys is just going to come out and explode and have the kind of season that Joe Burrow had is ridiculous. The guy threw for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns that season. So, I mean, are we even saying, like, if you said 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns even, there's no way any one of these guys is going to get that this year.
No.
It's just because the other part of that, like we said, Notre Dame has been trying to have they're going 6 years without having a 1,000-yard receiver. And so if Angeli or again, any other Notre Dame quarterback is going to approach those numbers, you're going to have at least 2,000-yard receivers. One of them is going to be over 1,500, and a third guy is probably going to be in the 700 to 800-yard range. Like, are you willing to say that kind of stuff can happen this year?
Right.
Like, I think that the offense can be really good, and they can all do, whoever it is can do really good things, but it's just so far out of left field. I have no idea how, you could give that take with a straight face if you're Greg McElroy.
Yeah, I mean that's like the definition of quick clickbait. Excuse me.
Yes.
And I respect McElroy. He makes good points. He's generally pro Notre Dame. But this is just a tough one for me. And again, it has nothing to do with it that it's Angeli. Like that's not even the thing. Don't compare anybody to Joe Burrow. Come on, man. Like he's had the most prolific season as a quarterback in college football history. Don't do that. That's not fair to the kid that you're comparing him to. Like that's not fair. It's not fair.
So John B is saying, to be fair, didn't they say Burrow looked pretty normal in practice, but was able to step up in actual games when it really mattered?
No, that's not what anybody said. I could
not tell you what they said. I have not listened to it.
No. He was fairly elite in a very not great offense in 2018. And then in 2019, they got a new offensive coordinator. They had some pretty prolific wide receivers as well, to your point, Sean. And it was like the perfect storm that allowed him to be who he is.
Yeah. The two receivers that he had, by the way, are two of the best receivers in the NFL
Correct.
right now. Jamar Chase and
Right.
Vikings guy. I've had him on my fantasy team the last 2 years. Jefferson, thank you. Justin Jefferson.
Right.
Yeah.
So like which one of the Notre Dame receivers are the two guys that are going to be leading the NFL in 3 years? Like besides Salty, who's ready to say that Notre Dame has that in their arsenal right now?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's not even a shot at Notre Dame. Like I would say that about any team in college football. You know, like good luck finding two guys that are like that.
I mean,
and then you get a count like Joe Burrow too.
It's almost like some of the expectations, like we talked about Mike Denbrock and Jaden Daniels from their last season together at LSU and everything Daniels was able to have. It's like, oh, you get Riley Leonard in that offense. And I think we probably expected too much. Again, if Denbrock and Leonard were together a second year this year, I think, like you could see some growth where Riley Leonard was probably going to be in the ballpark of the kind of stuff that Jaden Daniels did in his Heisman Trophy season. But Steve Angeli, CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, none of those guys have this. And specifically, obviously, Angeli, since that's the one that McElroy said, because again, obviously, he's leaning on a lot of the experience that Mike Denbrock seemed to dismiss the last time we talked to him, the relative experience that Angeli has. But Joe Burrow had a full season as a starter before he had that incredible Heisman and national championship season. None of these Notre Dame quarterbacks will have had that. This season is not going to approach anything like that. Now, maybe next season, you get the guy this year and then get his feet wet, and then next year he takes off.
Right. And I did listen to the 55-second snippet where he talks about Angeli and Burrow and the whole thing. I heard what he said. It was a direct comparison. It was a direct comparison. He said a Joe Burrow-like season. That's what he said. So, all right. Again, tough pill to swallow.
CBS college basketball legend Bill Raftery was recently asked about his famous onions catchphrase. It's blank that when he was on ESPN, they told him to stop using it, but then after some writers started writing about it in their articles, ESPN allowed him to start using onions again.
Ridiculous is what it is. Like, why are you silencing him? You know what I mean? Like, that's his go-to phrase. Why are you taking that away? I don't understand.
Well, it wasn't his go-to phrase back then, though.
Okay.
Apparently it was like right after he started, like the first time that he said it. So it wasn't his go-to back then.
Okay.
Like whenever this
But like, why are you trying to stifle? Like, what? Does it matter? I don't like. Are you
like his onions somehow offensive?
Is he being derogatory to the vegetable world? Like, I don't understand. Who's upset about this?
Carrots. The carrots are offended, Vince. Mushrooms.
Right. Like, what's the problem? Like, I feel like that's nitpicking. I feel like the ESPN people don't have enough going on that they would have done that. That's where I'm at. It's stupid, silly.
I agree. It seems just like very corporate,
Yes,
they would reach down and just kind of smack, one of your, like your beloved announcers. And he, again, like, I don't know if it was the 80s or early 90s that he would have said this. It's been a while, obviously, but it just seems so heavy-handed, to try to stifle him.
Right.
Obviously, his broadcasts are so much about just having fun and just, unbridled enthusiasm and all that kind of stuff. And, maybe I'm falling more into that, like Beefeater says, reason 1.2 million and whatever that ESPN says.
I mean, he's not wrong. Like nobody told you to stop saying ring the bell. All right. That was your catchphrase for a while. I liked it, by the way. You need to bring it back.
Bring it back. Bring it back next year.
Bring it back.
Ring it back.
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Manti Te'o geeked out today on Good Morning Football because Jameis Winston followed him on Instagram after Te'o had been following Winston for a long time. He finally got the follow back. Who would be the follower you would geek out for the most if they followed you, Vince?
This is a tough one because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, do I want to go into the sports world? Do I just want to go, just like entertainment? Like, what direction do I want to go, with this? And baseball-wise, or I should say, I was going to say sports-wise, but baseball-wise specifically. And I don't know why, and people are probably going to give me a hard time, but if David Ross followed me back.
Oh, the David Ross follow.
I would love that. Like that, I would geek out about that.
Whatever happened to David? Did he just after he got fired by the Cubs, he's just done?
He's still making money from the Cubs, so he's probably just like chilling.
I'm surprised. I guess I was going to say I'm surprised he's not in TV, but then again, everyone's downsizing baseball coverage on TV. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. I would dig that. I would dig that one. Yeah.
First, I have to say that I am like a boring follow on whatever.
So am I. I don't really
social platform. So why anyone would want to,
correct.
Me too. Of any, I really don't know. I appreciate, whatever Twitter followers, but it's tough, man, because it's the Twitter voice has never really come to me. It's like
fair. Every
once in a while, it's like I'll get something good during a game or whatever. And it's always like the random ones. It's like the ones that you're not expecting.
Yep.
Because when after the Orange Bowl, I was watching Scott Van Pelt Sports Center and he had Marcus Freeman on there. And SVP asked him about Steve Angeli. And Marcus Freeman said, peanut butter and jelly time. And I tweeted that. And that's probably the biggest tweet that I've ever had. Just because Marcus Freeman, quote, peanut butter and jelly time. That's the biggest one ever. But
that's awesome.
Kind of put that. I would have to say, if I'm going to combine the two loves, Notre Dame, Dallas Cowboys.
Oh boy.
Who's my guy? Who's always been my guy? The guy who just retired, Zach Martin. That would probably be it. Honestly, Romo came to mind at one point, but I would have to say Zach Martin, even though he's no longer playing, that would be I would probably consider that my quintessential follow if that were ever to happen.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
But it was funny because I was sitting there and I was putting the show together and I'm looking for one more topic. And I'm like, man, I'm starting to do some different searches. What can I find here? And then I was watching Good Morning Football because I had it recorded and Manti went through that whole thing. And I was like, okay, perfect topic. We'll just throw this in at the end.
It just kind of shocks me. That's who you get excited about, Manti?
Here's the deal.
Okay.
So I was watching yesterday as well. And they played a clip, I think, of an interview from Jameis Winston. And I think somebody asked him, what's your celebration dinner or something like that? And he's like, steak and some sweet potato and some green beans and whatever. And then they come back and Manti's like, yep, I've been following him for I don't know how long, but he's never followed me back, And so he was kind of throwing it out there. And so this was yesterday. And then today they showed a behind the scenes clip where he was on his phone and he looked on Instagram and Jameis Winston had followed him back. And he was like, see, all you got to do is be on TV and it works.
He's not wrong, by the way.
That's right.
That is the way you get your word out there. That's pretty funny.
That's exactly right. So that's why Manti was geeking out a little bit about Jameis Winston because he never got the follow back and he finally got it back after he mentioned it.
Nice.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today. Let me see. Beefeater said, did anyone figure out which reporter asked KVA during the linebacker presser what it has been like acclimating coming from Hawaii to South Bend? Yeah, I don't.
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that. Mikkel wanted to know, are we doing an IB meetup for Blue Gold? I haven't heard anything.
I have not heard anything. It's still a week away, but that's going to be up to the big man. So I don't know the answer, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't even remember what time it's at. Is it at 3 o'clock?
Blue Gold? I think it's 2 maybe.
Okay.
I can tell you here in just a second. I've got the schedule. the spring schedule someplace. Give me a second.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. There you go. It is.
Yep.
So it is 2. Okay.
2 o'clock. So it's possible, but I honestly don't know. So I don't get to make those kinds of decisions.
Yeah. Haven't heard. I don't know if we've really done.
Was it Beefeater? Was this
Pat 40 was not there.
I was gonna say
yeah.
There's no way there was any national reporters at spring practice. Like that wasn't that can't be.
Yeah, and if it was on the video, I wouldn't have been in the same room.
Oh,
that's the downstairs stuff. So, yeah, not sure. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Have a great weekend. Again, we get to watch some Notre Dame football practice this weekend. So, Brian and Trevor and Vince are going to have a show tomorrow afternoon after that football practice. So you've got that to look forward to.
So probably, I would imagine 3 o'clock-ish, 2:30 in that neighborhood, because practice goes from noon to 2.
Yeah.
So somewhere around there.
By the time you guys all scatter home and all that kind of good stuff, and then
hit that notification bell so that you know when the show is going to be when it's going to go live.
That's right.
Make sure you do that.
Marcus Freeman's got a press conference after the practice as well, so we will have some of his comments on Monday's show. So we got that to look forward to.
You and me again, brother. Let's go.
You got that right. You got that right. All right. Have a great weekend otherwise, and we will talk to you next week on IB Nation Sports Talk.
Cubs win.